I found the first orange notice taped to the depot door at 6:12 in the morning. Demolition preparation. The words hit me harder than the cold wind. My father used to bring me here every Saturday when I was a kid. We never rode anywhere. We just sat on the old wooden bench and watched freight trains pass through the edge of Millbrook, Ohio. He would point at the tracks and say, "Every town has a heartbeat, Ethan. This place is ours." Now that heartbeat had a warning sign on it. I stepped closer, my breath white in the winter air. The station windows were dusty. The brick walls were cracked. The black station clock above the entrance had stopped at 4, 17 years ago, but to me, it still felt alive. I pulled the notice down. Planning on stealing city property. I turned fast. A woman stood near the platform steps, holding a rolled set of blueprints under one arm. She wore a dark green coat, black gloves, and the calm expression of someone who expected trouble and had already prepared for it. "I'm not stealing anything," I said. "I'm removing trash." Her eyes moved to the notice in my hand. "That trash is a legal posting." "Then you must be with the people trying to tear this place down." She walked closer. "Claire Bennett, architect." Of course. I had seen her name in the city file. Bennett Design Group, hired to turn the old depot lot into a glass office plaza with a coffee chain and parking deck. Clean, modern, empty. "I'm Ethan Brooks," I said. "I know." That surprised me. She looked past me at the depot. "You're the history teacher who started the petition." "I'm also the man who's going to stop this." A faint, tired smile touched her mouth. "Before breakfast." "If needed." The smile disappeared, but not in anger. Something in her face shifted, like she wanted to say more and decided not to. I stepped between her and the door. "You can tell Mayor Hayes I'm not letting anyone inside." "I don't work for the mayor." "You work for the developer." "I work for my firm." "That's worse. At least politicians pretend to care before they sell something." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough." She looked at the torn notice in my hand. "No, you know what you want me to be." That should have made me quiet. It didn't. I unlocked the side door with the key Nora Simmons had given me months ago. Nora was 81, sharp as a railroad spike, and she still called herself the depot's volunteer caretaker, even though the city had stopped caring about the place long ago. Claire followed me inside before I could stop her. Cold air lived in the depot. It sat in the corners, clung to the old ticket window, and moved across the cracked tile floor. Sunlight pushed through high, dirty windows, catching dust in the air. The waiting room smelled like wood, rust, and old rain. Claire stopped just inside. For a moment, she did not look like someone here to destroy it. She looked like someone listening. I hated that I noticed. "The main support beams are original," she said softly. "White oak, 1913. I stared at her. "You read the plaque." "There's no plaque." I didn't answer. She stepped toward the ticket counter. The ceiling curve was copied from the old Cincinnati terminal style, smaller scale. Whoever designed this wanted the town to feel important. My anger slipped for half a second. My father used to say that exact thing. I tightened my grip on the brass train whistle in my coat pocket. It had belonged to him. I carried it whenever I came here, though I never told anyone that. It made me feel foolish and brave at the same time. "You did your homework," I said. "I do that before I touch a building. Before you erase it." She turned back to me. "You think this place can be saved because you love it. And you think it can't because someone paid you." Her face hardened. "Be careful." Why did I get close? She looked away first. Outside, thunder rolled, low and strange for a winter morning. The windows rattled. I glanced up. That storm wasn't supposed to hit until tonight, I said. Claire moved toward the platform doors. I need exterior measurements before the crews arrive Monday. No. She faced me. Ethan, I'm doing my job. And I'm doing mine. You teach high school history. Yes, which means I know what happens when people with money decide memory is inconvenient. For the first time, real hurt crossed her face. It was quick, but I saw it. Then the lights flickered. The depot groaned as wind slammed against the roof. A second later, something crashed outside. Claire rushed to the window. I followed. A tree limb had fallen across the side exit stairs. That's not good, she said. The front doors banged once, twice, then the old lock snapped into place from the force of the wind. I grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't move. Claire tried beside me. Nothing. You have another key? She asked. For that lock, no. Her phone was already in her hand. No service. I checked mine. One bar appeared, then vanished. The storm hit fully then. Snow and freezing rain swept across the tracks so hard the world outside blurred white. The depot windows shook like they were afraid. Claire wrapped her arms around herself. So we're stuck. For now. With the man who thinks I'm heartless. With the woman hired to destroy my father's favorite place. She looked at me then, really looked. Your father. I wished I had not said it. The anger that had been holding me up weakened, and behind it came the ache I tried not to carry into my classroom, my empty house, or this depot. He passed 2 years ago, I said. This was our place. Claire's expression softened. I expected pity. I hated pity. But she did not give me that. Instead, she looked toward the stop station clock and said, Then I understand why you're fighting. The quiet after that felt dangerous. Not romantic, not yet. But dangerous because it made her harder to hate. A loud crack came from somewhere above us. Dust fell from the ceiling. Claire stepped back, slipped on a broken tile, and I caught her by the arm before she hit the floor. For 1 second, we were too close. Her hand pressed against my chest. Mine held her waist. Her eyes were gray, steady, and scared in a way she clearly hated showing. Are you okay? I asked. She nodded, but neither of us moved right away. Then another crash sounded from the roof. Claire pulled back fast. We need to check the upper office. If water gets in near those beams, this whole place could shift. You sound worried. I am worried. About your project. She looked at me, rain shadows moving across her face. No, she said, about the depot. Before I could ask what that meant, the old station clock above us gave one sharp metallic click. Then, for the first time in years, its hands moved. The station clock moved like it had been waiting for us. One slow tick. Then another. Claire and I stood under it, both of us staring up while the storm beat against the depot roof. The hands shook, slipped forward 3 minutes, then stopped again. 4:20. My throat went tight. That clock hasn't moved since I was 16, I said. Claire looked from the clock to the wall behind the ticket counter. Maybe the impact shook the old mechanism. Or this place is trying to prove it's not dead. She gave me a quick look. You always talk to buildings. Only when they listen. For the first time, she almost smiled. Then water dripped onto my shoulder. Claire's face changed at once. Upper office now. We climbed the narrow stairs behind the ticket booth. The steps creaked under us. The upper office had once belonged to the station master. Now it held broken chairs, old file cabinets, a cracked desk, and years of dust. Wind pushed rain through a gap near the roofline. Claire dropped her blueprints on the desk and pulled a small flashlight from her bag. Hold this. You're giving orders now. You can argue after the ceiling doesn't fall on us. I held the light while she climbed onto a chair and studied the beam above the window. Her hair had loosened from its clip. A few strands fell across her cheek. I should not have noticed that. She pressed her palm against the wood. It's wet, but not rotted through. How do you know? Because old wood talks if you touch it right. I stared at her. She glanced down. What? Nothing. But it was not nothing. A woman hired to tear down the depot should not have sounded like she loved it. We found a tarp folded behind a cabinet and used it to cover the leak. The work forced us close in the small room. Once, when she reached for the tape, her fingers brushed mine. She pulled back first. So did I. Because whatever this feeling was, it had no right to exist. Downstairs, we searched for anything useful. The storm had turned the windows white. My phone still had no service. Claire's battery was low, so she turned it off. We may be here a while, she said. Great. Plenty of time for you to explain why a person who knows this much about the depot wants it gone. She sat on the edge of the old bench. I never said I wanted it gone. I stopped. You signed the redevelopment drawings. I was assigned to them. That's not an answer. No, she said quietly. It's the safest version of one. The words hung between us. Before I could push harder, a soft thump came from behind the ticket wall. Claire stood. Did you hear that? I nodded. We moved toward the sound. Behind the counter, part of the wood paneling had pulled loose from the storm shaking the wall. Something sat inside the gap. I reached in and drew out a metal box covered in dust. Claire stepped closer. Records. The box was not locked. Inside were old station schedules, photographs, and a roll of brittle paper tied with string. I opened it carefully. It was a hand-drawn map of Millbrook from 1913. The depot sat in the center. Around it were handwritten notes about building materials, community donations, and local families who had helped pay for the station brick by brick. At the bottom was my father's handwriting. I knew it immediately. My knees almost gave. Claire noticed. Ethan. He found this, I said. Years ago maybe, he must have hidden it here. There was a note folded inside the map. Ethan, if you ever think this town has forgotten what it is, remind them who built it. I turned away fast, but not before Claire saw my eyes fill. She did not touch me. She did not speak. She just stood beside me, close enough that I did not feel alone, far enough that I did not feel trapped. That made it worse, because I wanted her hand in mine. And I had no right to want that from her. I cleared my throat. This helps. If families donated materials, the depot may qualify for heritage protection. Claire nodded slowly. Yes, it could. You already knew that. Her silence answered before she did. I stepped back. Claire. She looked down at the map. I submitted an alternate plan 3 weeks ago. My heart began to pound for a new reason. What plan? A preservation design. Keep the depot shell, restore the waiting room, turn the platform into a winter market and community space. Small offices in the rear lot instead of replacing the whole building. I stared at her. That was possible. Yes. Then why didn't the city show it at the meeting? Her mouth tightened. Because my firm said the client rejected it. The mayor. And the developer. Anger rose in me again, but now it had nowhere simple to go. You let everyone think demolition was the only option. I tried to say something. When? At the planning session, you interrupted by calling me a hired hammer. I remembered that night. I remembered standing in the back of City Hall, furious, loud, certain. Claire's voice dropped. After that, Mayor Hayes told my boss I was becoming a public problem. My firm warned me not to step outside the approved plan again. So you stayed quiet. Yes, she looked at me then, and I hate myself for it. That cut through me. The woman I had built in my mind would have defended herself. This woman looked tired, cornered, and ashamed. The storm suddenly felt smaller than the space between us. I thought you were the enemy, I said. I know. Maybe I needed you to be. Her eyes softened, because that made it easier. I looked at the old map in my hands, because if one person was to blame, then maybe I didn't have to admit I was too late. Claire stepped closer. You're not too late. You don't know that. No, she said, but I know your father left you proof, and I know I made a plan that could save this place. Hope was dangerous. It made my chest hurt more than grief. A weak signal blinked on my phone. One message came through from Nora. City MOVED hearing up, tomorrow night. Demolition vote final. I showed Claire. Her face went pale. Then another message loaded. It was from an unknown number with one attachment. I opened it. A photo filled the screen. Claire's preservation proposal, stamped received by the mayor's office. 2 days before he claimed no alternate plan existed. The photo on my phone changed everything. Claire's preservation proposal had been received by the mayor's office, not lost, not delayed, not rejected before review. Buried. I read the stamp 3 times, while the storm finally began to weaken outside the depot windows. This proves he lied, I said. Claire stood beside me, her face pale in the phone light. It proves the mayor's office had it. That's enough. No, she said, it's a start. Her voice was steady, but her hands were not. She reached for her phone, turned it back on, and tried to call her boss. No service. I looked at her. Who sent this? I don't know. The unknown number had no name, no message, just the photo. I called it, straight to voicemail. Claire wrapped her arms around herself. Someone in City Hall knows what happened. Then we find them. She looked at me like I had just opened a door. She was afraid to walk through. Ethan, if I bring this forward, my firm will say I stole internal work. The developer could sue me. I could lose my license review. You said the depot could be saved. It can. Then tomorrow night we show the town. She looked away. That silence hurt more than I expected. I tried to soften my voice. Claire. You don't understand, she said. I have already lost one job for speaking up. I stopped. She took a slow breath. 2 years ago, I worked on a housing project in Dayton. The numbers were wrong. The safety reports were being rushed. I reported it. They called me difficult, emotional, not a team player. She gave a small, bitter laugh. After that, no one wanted me on important projects. Bennett Design gave me a chance, but only if I stayed quiet and did exactly what I was told. The anger in me shifted again. Not gone. Just aimed somewhere else. So this project was your test, I said. She nodded, and I failed at the moment I cared. The words landed deep. Outside, snow slid from the roof in a heavy sheet. Inside, the depot felt colder, but Claire looked smaller than she had all morning. I wanted to reach for her. I didn't. Because wanting her was becoming another kind of danger. You didn't fail, I said. You made another plan. And then I let them hide it. Before I could answer, a loud knock hit the front doors. We both turned. Ethan, Nora's voice called from outside. You in there? Relief rushed through me. The storm had loosened enough for her son to clear the door. 10 minutes later, Claire and I stepped into the bitter afternoon air with the metal records box, the old map, and the photo saved on both our phones. Nora stood on the platform in a red wool hat. glaring at the depot like it had personally offended her. "I told the city that lock needed fixing," she said. Then she saw Claire. Her eyes narrowed. "Architect." Claire met her look. "Yes, ma'am." Nora pointed at me. "If she's trouble, say so." I glanced at Claire. She might be the reason we still have a chance. Nora's face changed just a little. We went to my classroom because the school was empty after the storm closure. I spread everything across my desk. The donation map, my father's note, Claire's alternate design, the stamped photo, and old newspaper clippings Nora brought from her storage closet. Claire stood at the whiteboard and drew the preservation plan from memory. Her voice grew stronger as she explained it. "The depot stays. The west wall needs reinforcement, but it's repairable. The roof can be rebuilt without losing the original beams. The platform becomes public space. The rear lot still gives the developer rentable offices. Less profit, but not no profit." Nora leaned back in a student chair. "So why would Hayes kill it?" That was the question. I searched public meeting records on the classroom computer. Claire watched over my shoulder. Page after page showed the same thing. Mayor Hayes praising the office plaza as the only financially realistic option. Then Nora made a sound. "Look at this." She had opened an old local article about campaign donations. One name jumped out. Ashford Development. The same company pushing the demolition. They had donated heavily to Mayor Hayes's campaign through a business committee. Claire's face went still. "That doesn't prove a deal." "No," I said, "but it proves he had a reason to prefer one plan." My email chimed. The unknown number had sent another message. "Ask Nora about the platform lease." Nora's face lost color when I read it aloud. "Oh," she whispered, "I forgot." She reached into her purse with shaking hands and pulled out a folded copy of an old lease agreement. "My father kept this. The platform land was donated by 3 families. The city can use it for transportation, public gatherings, or community service. But if they sell it for private-only development, ownership can be challenged by the heirs." Claire grabbed the paper. "That would slow demolition for months." "Or stop it," I said. Nora looked ashamed. "I didn't think it mattered anymore." "It matters," Claire said gently. The way she said it made Nora blink. Something passed between them. Trust, maybe, small but real. By evening, the storm had cleared. Claire and I stood outside the school under a hard blue winter sky. My breath shook from cold and fear. "We have enough to fight," I said. She nodded. "But the proposal has to come from me. You don't have to do it alone." She looked at me for a long moment. "That's what scares me." I frowned, me helping. "No, believing you mean it." The quiet opened between us. I stepped closer. "I was wrong about you." Her eyes shone. "You were not completely wrong." I stayed quiet. "And tomorrow you won't." She looked down. "If I stand up in that hearing, I may lose my job." "I know. If I don't, you lose the depot." I swallowed hard. "Claire, I don't want you to ruin your life for my grief." Her eyes lifted to mine. "It's not just your grief anymore." That stopped me. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the snow melting on her lashes. I wanted to kiss her. Instead, I said the truth. "I'm scared that after tomorrow you'll leave." Claire's lips parted, but before she could answer, her phone rang. She looked at the screen. "My boss," she whispered. She answered on speaker. A man's cold voice filled the air. "Claire, if you speak at that hearing, you are finished with this firm. And if Ethan Brooks has our internal proposal, we will make sure everyone knows you leaked it." Claire looked at me. Her face was terrified, but her voice was clear. "Then tomorrow," she said, Everyone will know why I had to. City Hall was already full when I arrived. People stood along the walls, packed shoulder to shoulder in winter coats. Some held "Save the Depot" signs. Others looked tired, doubtful, ready to accept whatever Mayor Hayes told them was progress. Claire was not there yet. That scared me more than I wanted to admit. I sat beside Nora in the second row with my father's brass train whistle in my coat pocket and the old platform lease folded in my hand. On the table in front of the council sat Claire's preservation drawings, my father's map, and copies of the stamped proposal. Mayor Hayes walked to the microphone with a smooth smile. "I know this issue has become emotional," he said, "but leadership means choosing the future over nostalgia." Nora whispered, "I never liked that man's hair." I almost laughed, but my eyes stayed on the door. Still no Claire. The developer's lawyer spoke first. He called the depot unsafe. He called the office plaza necessary. He called the preservation plan unrealistic, unofficial, and emotionally motivated. Then Mayor Hayes looked toward me. "Mr. Brooks has fought hard," he said. "We respect his passion, but passion is not a plan." My hand tightened around the whistle. I stood. My legs felt unsteady, but my voice held. "My father used to tell me every town has a heartbeat," I said. "For Millbrook, that heartbeat is the depot, not because it is pretty, not because it is perfect, because our grandparents built it, because soldiers left from that platform, because families came home there, because some places hold more than brick." The room went quiet. I held up the map. "This was found inside the depot. It shows the town helped build it together. And this lease shows the platform land was donated for public use, not private-only development." The lawyer stood. "That lease is old and unverified." A voice came from the back. "It's verified." Every head turned. Claire stood in the doorway, pale but steady, holding a folder against her chest. My breath caught. She walked down the center aisle. People whispered as she passed. Mayor Hayes's face tightened. Claire reached the microphone and placed her folder on the table. "My name is Claire Bennett. I am the architect assigned to the depot redevelopment." The mayor leaned forward. "Ms. Bennett, you are not on tonight's speaker list." "No," she said, "because you removed the plan I submitted." The room stirred. Claire opened the folder and lifted the stamped proposal. "I submitted a preservation design to the mayor's office. It kept the historic depot, repaired the unsafe sections, preserved the public platform, and still allowed limited commercial development on the rear lot." Mayor Hayes's smile vanished. "That proposal was not viable. You told the town it did not exist." Silence hit the room like a dropped stone. Claire's voice shook once, then grew stronger. "I stayed quiet because I was afraid of losing my job. I told myself I was just one architect. I told myself someone else would fight harder, but buildings are not just drawings. They are memory. They are proof that people were here." She looked at me then. "And some people remind you what courage is supposed to look like." My chest ached. The developer's lawyer demanded a recess. Nora stood and shouted, "No recess. Vote where we can see you." Others joined her. The council reviewed the stamped proposal, the lease, the donor map, and the cost comparison Claire had prepared. Mayor Hayes tried to interrupt twice. The council president finally told him to sit down. Then came the vote. One by one, the council members spoke. No demolition. Review the preservation plan. Protect the platform lease. When the final vote passed, the room erupted. Nora hugged me so hard my ribs hurt. People clapped, cried, and called out Claire's name. Mayor Hayes left through a side door without looking at anyone. Claire stood near the microphone like the sound had knocked all the strength out of her. I went to her. You did it, I said. She shook her head. We did. What happens now? She gave a small, broken laugh. I probably don't have a job. You have a town that just heard you save its heart. Her eyes filled. Ethan, I was so scared. I know. I almost didn't come. But you did. She looked at me for a long time. I didn't come only for the depot. The noise around us faded. I reached into my pocket and took out my father's brass train whistle. I carried this because I thought saving the depot meant holding on to him, I said. But maybe it means building something that lets other people remember too. Claire closed her hand around mine and the whistle. And what do we build now? She asked. I looked at her, something honest. 6 months later, the depot reopened on the first night of the Winter Lantern celebration. The roof had been repaired. The old beams were cleaned and sealed. The station clock worked again, ticking above the restored ticket window. Claire had left her firm and started a small studio in Millbrook. Her first project was the place everyone said could not be saved. I stayed a teacher, but every Friday my students helped collect town stories for the depot wall. Mayor Hayes resigned after the state ethics review began. The developer accepted the smaller rear lot plan. Nora got her own chair by the platform and told everyone she was supervising history. That night, Claire and I stood inside the restored waiting room as lantern light glowed against the glass ceiling. Outside, the first Heritage train rolled slowly toward the platform. Claire slipped her hand into mine. The station clock struck 7. The train whistle sounded through the winter air, deep and bright and alive. And for the first time since my father died, I did not feel like I was standing in the past. I was standing beside Claire, inside the place we had saved together, watching the future arrive.